So, stereotype. What is it? A stereotype is an oversimplified generalization about a person or group of people based on a piece of their identity. So here today, we're talking with your peers, people that you know, people that are in your classes with you, and they're gonna be sharing their stories of intolerance and then hopefully also stories of acceptance. So here we go. All right, how are you guys?
I'm doing good.
Yeah? Awesome. So we're gonna go on this journey today of intolerance to acceptance. So first thing to start off is share with me your experiences, your personal stories with intolerance.
Okay, so there was a story, and it was like middle of 8th grade, and I went to this school in Mira Mesa called Challenger. It was during PE, the day before we went to the beach with my family, so I was there all day. I ended up getting sunburned in the back. So we were doing like warm-ups, doing jumping jacks, and then my teacher knew like something was wrong because like I was sore. So she walks up to me like, Dom, what's up with you? And I was telling her that I got sunburned in the back. And so she said like a comment that like kind of like threw me and a couple of my friends off. She said that I didn't know that colored people could get sunburned. And so I acted calm on it. I didn't like throw anything out. I was like, okay, well, I mean, you know now. So, but my friends, they were like, oh my gosh, she said that, she's racist. But I was calm about the whole situation. Then I went to tell my mom the situation when I came home. And then she was like, Dom, you didn't say anything like rude or anything? I was like, yeah, I was calm. Like, I mean, she didn't know. And so that kind of like threw me off. I didn't like expect that to happen. So, I mean, I guess I kind of accepted it, but then again, like, I don't know.
I feel like that was more of indifference than it was intolerance. I'm sure like she didn't mean like the way it came out, but a lot of people out of ignorance, they say things that like come off that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that is, I love what you said that she didn't know,
mm-hmm.
right? Because sometimes I think intolerance, that's exactly where it comes from, is a place of not knowing, right? So someone else.
I mean, I know for me, I come from a multilingual household, and growing up, I was really proud of my cultural identity because I'm Kurdish, and not a lot of people are Kurdish, and we are an indigenous race. We are also oppressed in the Middle East as well as in America. And when I was younger, I was really proud of the fact that I could speak Kurdish because I felt like it made me different. And in elementary school, I would try to speak it at school with myself. Like people would call things a hair tie, I would call it a hair tie in Kurdish because that was my way of expressing who I was. And I remember one time my friend, she kind of was like, don't say things no one else understands. This is America, we speak American here, and like all these things. And I'm pretty sure for a good 8 years, I didn't even think in Kurdish at school because I felt like I just wasn't being accepted for the fact that no one really understood where I was from, because not many people even know what that is. And I feel like it wasn't just intolerance, it was just like ignorance again, like the same theme.
Well, for me, I mean, I've known I was like gay since I was like in 3rd grade and stuff, but I guess not a lot of other 3rd graders know what that really means and stuff, and so just because I knew it, it didn't necessarily mean I was comfortable with it, and it didn't mean I was ready to dive into that and like really become confident with who I was. And so in elementary school, and like boys would call me like a little girl or like a little gay boy and stuff because I only hung out with girls because girls were the only ones that were nice to me back then. And so it's definitely shaped who I am now because like I don't trust like straight boys that often or anything. I don't I tend to avoid them or I just hang out with my girls because like in elementary school and middle school and stuff, like they were the only ones that were nice to me. And so I think when it comes to like intolerance, it's because like at such a young age, like you're just taught like boys hang out with boys and girls hang out with boys. So I'm sure when those boys saw me just being myself and hanging out with girls and talking all the time and not playing out on the field at lunch, it was different to them and they didn't know how to react and stuff. And so they would just lash out, which I'm not hostile or like hold on to anymore, but it just like, it hurts, you know, and like you're a little kid and stuff, and like you don't feel normal because like people will yell at you just for like doing what you want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big facet of intolerance. It's being hostile towards what you don't understand.
Yeah.
Because if a boy in middle school doesn't want to hang out with girls, then he won't really be able to sympathize with you because you want to hang out with girls. And I think that's like a huge thing. It's like being cold to what you can't really sympathize with.
Yeah, and the fear of difference, right? When something's not normal to you or isn't what you've experienced, and it's like there's kind of this automatic push, like, whoa, you're different than me, and it can create fear, and then fear creates so many things. How intolerance shows up in our world right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a story. I moved here in middle school from LA, so I didn't have many friends, but when I came to high school, I tried to be the very social girl. So I made friends with a group of girls that I never knew, and I usually go to Egypt over the summer to see my family, and when I came back I go summer or winter, so this time I went in the winter. When I came back, one of the girls said to another girl who told me that she thought I got radicalized in Egypt, even though she didn't know what I did there, who I was seeing. She just made that statement. So then I just cried that entire lunch. And I called my sister. She said, report it to your counselor. So I went to my counselor and she said, okay, you can write this little report. So I wrote that report and nothing happened. She didn't talk to me again. Or like the counselor, she never called me back in. No action was taken. So I just decided to separate myself from them just because I don't want to dwell on that situation, have it affect me.
Yeah. But those things do affect us.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can, and I think it's important for people to know that if I go through something, the way that I react and respond is going to be different than how someone else responds to it. And so to be open to the fact that not everybody's going to be able to maybe shrug something off, and also not everybody's going to cry in front of someone when they're faced with, blatant intolerance. So I think it's also important to know that we're all going to react differently to what happens to us as well, right?
So I don't think this is like a story about intolerance, just kind of a trend that I've seen throughout my life. Is just when I go somewhere new or people will comment on like how I'm Indian, but they don't know, like, because my mom's from the Dominican Republic and my dad's from India, so I'm biracial. I go to 7-Eleven all the time, and the same guy, it's the same guy every time, he always asks me, he's like, oh, you're from India, right? And I'm like no, like my mom is from the Dominican Republic, my dad's from India. And so I have to explain it to people, and it's kind of like, it's not, I don't blame them because they don't know, but I just don't know why they would comment on something that I feel like no one else gets comment. Like if someone walked up to me, I wouldn't directly comment on their race. I just don't think it's a thing that people do. And yet I've seen it so much. I went to the Dominican Republic, I think last year, and even my family would talk in Spanish and have conversations about how I was like, I looked so Indian, I don't look like I'm part of the family because they're all really light-skinned. And so that kind of, like, that hurts me more than a stranger saying it to me, is like my own family, that I don't look like them just because my mom decided to marry someone like from a different race, and I can't really control the way I look. So one of my sisters is really fair, and one of my sisters is looks like me, but I look the most Indian out of all three of us. So when we go to family functions and stuff like that, I just get like overwhelming amount of comments about how I'm darker than everyone else, or how I look super Indian, like I can't speak Spanish. So I mean, I don't think it's not a story, it's kind of just like a trend that I've seen like throughout my life.
Yeah, and it's what you said about, a comment that you don't feel like someone else would get. And and so how do you handle these things? So, how do you handle when these things pop up? When those comments are said, or questions are asked, or names are called? How do you personally handle these situations of intolerance?
I think for me personally, my reaction has changed as I've grown and gotten older.
Sure.
Like, even up until like freshman year in the locker room, when I was like, when boys would like call me gay and stuff, like I would just like literally look at them and just sob and like be like, this is what you made me do. And like I would just, but now it's just like, it's taken some time to just kind of become like introspective and stuff, and just be like, being gay and like being literally who I am 100% of the time is not bad.
Right.
It's not something that when called gay, because that's what I am, like it's not an insult. I shouldn't take it like an insult, you know? And so like and it's obviously, it's different with different slurs, you know, and stuff. So like, and so like some of it doesn't hurt as much as the other, but it's just because I've grown, it's like, yeah, call me gay, that's because what I am. Like, call me a boy, call me brown haired.
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly how it is. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
I mean, I completely resonate with Tina's story because for me, I've never really felt like there was a category in which I belong because I'm not white. Everyone thinks I'm white. They call me white. I'm not white. I want to get that straight because if I were white, then I would receive the full set of privileges that white people receive. And I'm also not Arabic. And people associate the Middle East with being Arabic. So in America, people either call me Arabic or white. I'm neither, first of all. I just want to like reiterate that because it pisses me off.
Yeah.
And in Syria, I'm also oppressed because Kurds aren't allowed to speak their language in public. They aren't allowed to name their children Kurdish names. They aren't allowed to build any buildings under a Kurdish proprietorship, I guess. So like if I wanted to build a school to teach Kurdish, I can't do that. So not only do I feel when I go to the Middle East and my mom says speak Arabic, don't speak Kurdish, and then in America people don't even know who I am, it's like I don't really belong. Like, you know, if you have to fill something out, like for college when I was applying, it said like white, Middle Eastern, but Kurds don't really fit in that because some of us are from Turkey and Turkey, so I'd always have to put other, and sometimes there wasn't an other bubble, so I would say where do I belong? And that's just like a huge struggle for me growing up. But the way I've learned to deal with it is I used to be really angry when people would say like, are you from Islam? And it's just like, but like now I just try to explain to them, like, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, it's a small region. I try to educate them because I feel like then that will help them to think something over before they ask someone else again. And I'm also Muslim, and people ask me, why don't you cover your hair? Why don't you dress like this? And it's like a lot of things because people, like Tina said, people will assume that you have to fit this like perfect, you know, like like a, what's it called?
It's like a template?
Template, yeah, like a perfect template of what they envision you to be based off, like what you said, like a piece of your identity.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's what a stereotype is, right? It's a oversimplified. So if you are this, then that means da 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 da, right? So there's only one list, and so when it's like, okay, you're already throwing out a stereotype, but now I'm not even fitting your stereotype. So now that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, right? And I love that you take the opportunity to educate. I think that's a really profound way to handle, you know, intolerance. What are other ways that we've handled these
similar
situations?
to Tina, I've noticed that when I first meet a new person, they're like, oh, where are you from? And before, like 6th grade or like freshman year, I would like conform and I would say, oh, I'm from Egypt, you know, because I never knew how to answer it properly. But now I've learned to say, oh, I'm from Northern California. I was born in Palo Alto. And then they would ask me, oh, no, where are you from? I'm like, I just answered your question.
Yeah.
And so then I would continue to say, oh, well, my parents were born in Egypt and they moved here when they were married. And so I've learned not to, because I don't want to give in to what they want to hear. I want to tell them the truth. And that's another part of like teaching them so they're not ignorant and don't repeat the same question again.
Yeah.
I think that like educating people on like what you're like what you really mean is like the easiest thing you can do. I mean, the easiest thing you can do is be upset. Because I know when I was little, like, when people would say, like, oh, like, you're so dark, I would just go home and, like, complain to my mom and be like, why can't I be white? Like, why can't I be, like, look like my sister who's so, like, fair? And then I think as you grow, you just realize, like, it's okay if other people don't know, because I don't know everything about other types of people, but you just have to learn to make sensitive comments, and you can't be insensitive about other people, and you have to learn to educate them, or else, like, nothing's gonna get better if no one knows what's actually going on with everyone.
Yeah, going off what Tina said, like, I'd want to answer questions, or like if someone like do a stereotype at me, I'd want to answer it not based off emotion, because if I were to answer based off emotion, then I feel like I would fit a certain stereotype. Instead, I want to educate them and like inform them, like, okay, I do this. Like, I feel like everybody's unique in some shape or form. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's everybody's different, period. So I feel like answering people's questions educatedly instead of based off emotions, what's gonna like isolate questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So why is this? We're in 2018, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and we're still facing intolerance now, today. Why do you think that is? I mean, look at this panel. This is from one school, and this is 5 students, right? What a cool representation, first of all, of your school, but also it's like, we're all so different, as you were saying, Dom, and it's like, okay, so when are we gonna get this? So why do you think intolerance still exists to this day?
I think it's conflict. Like, I think it's internal conflict. It's like political conflict. I think when conflict increases, so does fear. And I think that fear causes people to be wary. And whether it be because of the certain positions of power that are overseeing our country right now, I think it's causing divisions. And I think people, because they've fed into what these politicians are feeding them, they're building these conceptions of others in their mind. So I know it's 2018, we should be totally getting past this, but our problems in some ways are getting worse. Whether it be like foreign affairs, whether it be tensions domestically, I think that's just causing people to spread apart from each other when they should be coming together.
I think it's just easier, like, for everyone. I know, like, it's easy for me to judge someone right when I look at them, because that's what I've been trained to do since I was, like, born.
Yeah.
Just because that's what society, like, places on you, is like, you have to look at someone, you have to judge them, you have to compare yourself to them. And so I think it doesn't matter how long we're here, and it doesn't matter that it's 2018, because it's always going to be easier to look at someone and judge them instead of looking at someone and saying, oh, like, I don't know where you're from, I don't know what your story is, like, let me ask you, let me talk to you about it. Like, that's never gonna be the easiest thing to do ever. I mean, even, like, for me, like, I look at someone and I try not to so much anymore, but it's still hard. It's still, like, the easiest way to, like, go. So I think that's why we're still facing this. It's just because it's the easier option, and it's, like, so hard to, like, know what other people are going through, and you never want to, like, take it upon yourself to ask them. And so that's why no one ever does, and that's why we're still, like, facing this conflict right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like people tend to, like, order and stuff and, like, categorizing things, and so when, like, you see like somebody, it's easy to be like, okay, they're white, so obviously they're gonna be like this, or obviously they're gonna be like that, and it's just easy to go with that and just to live your life like that. And so instead of getting to know them, you know, instead of actually asking questions and just, like, talking to somebody, because it's so special to just hear their stories and, like, hear who they are, and then you get to know them better. And it just, like, but people don't want to waste their time doing that, or they just want to keep it surface level, like, hi, how are you, I'm out, we're just moving along, and it just, like, as we keep just gliding past each other, nobody's talking, nobody's opening up these conversations about intolerance and stuff. It just, like, okay, that was racist, let's move on. And it's like, no, that was racist, this is how you counteract that. Like, this is how the floodgates open into tolerance and acceptance, you know?
Yeah, I think, like, especially in this community, we kind of live in a bubble, and I feel like some people think being indifferent is not being intolerant, but it is. It's, I'm gonna pretend this isn't happening, so I'm gonna live on with my life and everything's okay. And it's like, not talking about it doesn't mean it goes away. And in a lot of households, I feel that is a trend, even with just problems between, like, family members. People are like, if I'm not gonna talk about it, nothing's gonna happen. And the same goes within our community, and, like, what you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. So how do we encourage these conversations? Tell me about Westview. Tell me about your culture here. So you mentioned that you feel like it might be a little bit of a bubble. So tell me your experiences on campus. What's the culture here? How does intolerance maybe show up? How has acceptance maybe also shown up?
I think Westview is one of those schools that does a really good job of trying their best to make sure that everybody feels included and that everybody has a voice. But of course, the teachers and, like, our faculty and staff can't catch everything, you know? They can't catch every conversation that's happening. And so when it comes down to that, it's not just the teacher's responsibilities to keep the students in line, it's also our responsibility to keep our peers in line and, like, keep us in a more loving and tolerant, like, world and, like, space. Because, like, this space isn't just for getting in and getting your schoolwork done and going. Like, we come here for 8 hours a day. We, like, are in this one space. We're eating together. We're walking by each other every day. And, like, when we have acts like people spray painting like swastikas on our big W and stuff like that directly targets like a group of people and makes them feel like they're not safe here, and that's unacceptable, you know. And so, but when those things happen, I think Westview does an amazing job of like taking it, immediately painting it over, immediately having all the teachers talk to their classes and be like, listen, that was not right, that is not okay, that is not Westview's standards of living, and like then they open up the conversation in classrooms, and I think that's super important, and that's something I really love about Westview.
Yeah, like after the Parkland shooting, our teachers all were like, do you feel safe? Like, what can we do to make you feel better? And that's really important.
Yeah.
What surprised me the most was that, like, bringing up the whole shooting thing, was that we recently had a walkout. And so what struck me the most was that I didn't expect any like teachers to actually like be at the walkout. And so I actually saw a couple. And so that kind of like threw me off because I thought it was just going to be an all students thing. But seeing that some of the staff was there too, and showed me like they really care about us, you know? And so their job, or what they want to do, is to keep us safe and feel like we're wanted. Like this, whenever you want to like talk to somebody or like feel welcome, like Westview's the place to be. And so I feel like staff is doing like an amazing job of doing that.
Nice. That's awesome.
I have a question, if you guys don't mind. Like Westview does do a great job, but like, if you guys don't mind sharing, have you guys ever like experienced like intolerance or like hatred like here at Westview, like in these like past 3 or 4 years and stuff, like, and like if you have, how did you react? Because you know we're so much older now, and like it's such a different environment.
I mean, I got called a terrorist like 3 times on my school bus, and like I was so mad about it. But like looking back, it's like funny to me because it's like y'all are stupid. Like I'm sorry, but it's just like you don't even know what you're talking about. And I like handled it really bad back then because I was a freshman, and freshmen handle nothing. I mean, they're great, but like they're like new and they're like frazzled, whatnot. And like looking back at it now, I wish I kind of just like took the time to talk to them. Sure. Be like, what if a teacher was here? You wouldn't say that. And also, like, you're all friends with each other, and none of you told, hey, like, I'm sure one of them was thinking that's not right, but not one person told their friend, maybe you shouldn't have said that. So like that was like one of the few experiences I've had of like blatant like rage from someone else.
And I think you said something important, and it's come up a couple of times about indifference or sticking our head in the sand and pretending like these things don't happen. I think the importance of this conversation is that we do talk about it, right? You know, so you mentioned that, well, people aren't willing to talk about it. It's natural for us to judge, and that is true. We're taught from a very young age to put the circles where the circles go and the squares where the squares go and all that. But when it applies to people, right, that's where it gets really dangerous and where it gets really hurtful. And so pretending like these things don't happen on campus, it's not like it's only a Westview thing, it happens on every campus. And so us being honest, you being honest here and telling the truth about your stories is so incredibly important. And when we see something, right, and when we see this happening on campus, how do we react? Because sometimes in the moment, that rage does take over, that anger does take over. And I think it's, as you've said, it's easier to react that way. It's easier just to respond with those emotions because these things can be so hurtful. And we, hopefully we do learn over time to educate. So do you have any other examples? You know, Jack was asking, like, what are your other examples of things you've seen on campus? Are there other things you've seen, and how did you react? How did you respond?
I think the most I've seen was after the election last year. Just the political climate and the tension was so high. I mean, I know I didn't want to go to school the next day just because I was just like,
I was depressed.
I was
so sad.
And it wasn't because of it. It was just because I didn't trust how people would talk to me anymore, which is really sad. And I think that's the saddest part, is that I didn't want to go to school because I felt like people were gonna say rude things to me. And I came the next day, and someone who is my friend just screamed. She was like, "Go back to your country." And I was like, I was born in Delaware, the first state of this country. I'm from this country. I'm more from this country than you are. So it's just after that, I felt like that's the most I've seen of Westview being so insensitive just because there's people in your classes and they have political views that are different than yours and you don't know how to react. And it's the same thing I think that would have happened if it was roles reversed.
Sure.
That you know, other people would be saying stuff to other people, and it's just, that's like the highest point I've ever seen, and I haven't really seen anything else like personally experienced, because maybe I don't like pay attention to it, and I don't really take the time to be like, oh, that wasn't nice, because I just ignore them.
Yeah.
But that was definitely like the height of what I've seen was the political tension, and like so many racist and insensitive comments were being said
As
and
jokes, too.
as jokes,
It
yeah,
was
as jokes, and they don't realize that like you're saying it as a joke, but my grandma could be deported from this country, and that's not funny.
It's like, it doesn't affect you because you're white, and this might work towards your favor, like,
Yeah.
but it doesn't, it's not the same case.
Yeah, and how do we get people to understand that just because something doesn't maybe directly affect you doesn't mean it's not important for you to be educated about the topic.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? What do you think?
There are just some people who like refuse to be educated.
Sure.
Like, I forgot to talk about this earlier. I'm surprised I didn't, but like I had a coach at Westview. He doesn't coach at Westview anymore. We had gone in an argument because I told him I'm not white, and he basically, and I said I'm born in America, but you know how you said you didn't like to say you're from Egypt? I said I'm from Kurdistan. I was born in America, but I am from Kurdistan because that's what I'm proud of. He's like, no, you're not. You're not. Your parents are. You're from America. That's your heritage. I said, then why don't I speak English at home? And for 30 minutes we fought, and at the end of the conversation, he's like, you're wrong, you're white. Like, you live in America, you speak English, you're not anything else. Your parents are, but you aren't. And I tried to educate him. Like, I tried to list out all these things.
Sure.
But like, he's from like Minnesota. Like, he's white as can be. And like, nothing got. So I feel like it's like some people, there's just nothing. Like, maybe it's because of his age. Like, some older people refuse to be educated by a younger person. But
That's very true.
Yeah. And I also, where do we get these thoughts from, right? Like no one comes out the womb hating people. That's not that's not natural to our humanity to hate. So where we learn these things. Hatred and intolerance is a learned thing. And so I also know that because of that, we can learn the opposite, right? Like we can be educated. We can choose to learn. We can choose to have these conversations, right? And so how can we encourage that? How can we encourage that here at Westview? How can you do that as students? What can you do on campus to spread more of these types of conversations? Obviously, this is a start. You deciding to say yes to being a part of this today it's phenomenal. It's so incredible for you to be here. It's an honor for me to be here with you. So how do we further this? How do we take what we're doing here and make this be what Westview is about, for sure, and then beyond that?
I think that we do stuff like Unity Day, and we do stuff like No Place for Hate Week, and I think that sets a really big tone, because sometimes it's not taken seriously, but the people who want to take it seriously, they do.
yeah.
And there's so many like different programs out there that are put in schools that you hear from other schools. You hear from Del Norte about every 15 minutes, and you say, I want to implement that in my school. And it's just these conversations end up happening because they're happening somewhere else.
Yeah.
So as long as they're happening, they will eventually happen here, because everyone talks to everyone. So if the conversation continues to happen and continues to grow, I think that we can always have the conversation. It's when the conversations stop and people start being hostile towards one another and say, well, you don't understand me, then no, I don't have to understand you. So, I know that's what's happening, like with my family. It's just, I don't like white people anymore because they're racist. And I'm like, but what you just said is racist, because you can't assume that all white people are racist, because that's racism in itself.
Right.
Like, that's the root of it. So it's like everyone has to understand each other, and as long as those conversations keep happening, like at your house, with your family, like it's the most important, because your family is the one who teaches you when you're younger about all of these things. So if your family is the one that's telling you all of this stuff, and then you go to school and you hear the opposite, you get kind of confused. So we just have to make sure that we're like educating everyone on how to keep these conversations going, like in high school, throughout college, when you grow into the workplace, like
Absolutely.
everywhere.
I think the conversations need to be made in high school, because if you go to college and you're that person who's like making all these racist, or not just racist, just like intolerant slurs, no one's gonna want to be your friend. No one's gonna want to talk to you, because in college it's not like, I know people aren't there for what some people joke about. And like I had that conversation with someone, he's like a really good friend of mine, he's smart, and I didn't expect this to come from him, but he used the R word 5 times in one sentence, and we got in this like very long, like constructive like conversation. He's like, I'm not using the R word to be rude, so why am I not allowed to use it? He said, why do other people tell me I can't use it? And I was like, it's the same reason why white people should not use the N word. Even if they say it in in a song, like they're singing along to a song, like the connotations around it, they should take into the fact that it upsets a large group of people, they should just not say it. It doesn't matter if it's unfair or not. Like, don't cry. Yeah. He's like, why can't I use the R word if it's just like, I have to watch what I say because it'll hurt other people? I'm like, yes. Because if it's coming out there, it's gonna hurt a huge group of people. Even if you don't mean it, it's gonna put you along with all the other people who do. And like he like at the end of the conversation, he's like, you're right, like I'm not gonna use that word anymore. So it's like there are ways to like get people to see like from their side. Like he's Hispanic. I was like, some people they'll joke around with their friends, they'll say like a horrible like cholo or like, and I was like, what if someone said that to you? You'd be offended, right? He's like, yeah. And I was like, see, like you just have to put it in your perspective.
Sure.
Yeah, but like how do we start this conversation without it stemming from a place of intolerance? Like we can't just like have somebody like we can't just like get a mean comment and then be like, hey, let's not be terrible. Like we should just be able to come up to like pass them by, hi, how are you? By the way, have you heard this? Like,
yeah, it's hard. I see that.
Like there's no like I feel like we should be able to implement these conversations without them stemming from a place of hate.
Then it has to come from their parents, honestly, like at a young age. Like if you're drilled at home, like I was drilled at home, like don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Yeah. I've gone into school, I know what I have to do and what I can't do.
But that's not everybody's home.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, I grew up with a single mom, you know, I'm biracial, my mom's white, my dad's black, and being a woman, being gay, all of these things have helped me to be tolerant and even more than that accepting, because like who am I gonna hate? You know what I'm saying?
Who am I gonna judge?
Let's go down the list of all, you know, it's like come on now, right? So some people though, that's not the truth of their home life. Mm-hmm. They're taught to be intolerant. This is a learned thing. And you're right, it's not like, hi, I'm Nicky, let's talk about race. Right? Like it's not normal and natural to a conversation. But there are ways.
Mm-hmm. Then I think if it's not instilled in homes, I think it should be instilled by our educators,
like kindergarten,
at school, because like as much as we say like our teachers are so mean, they give us so much, we respect them and we listen to them, and like they are so influential to like children and to us when we're growing and stuff. So if we have that as like part of our curriculum and we're opening that conversation to like children and like they're listening the entire time, like that can be so important. But like it's not like I can just say, hey, let's change the curriculum, you know? Like that has, like I can't just be like, Westview, why aren't you doing this? Because it's not easy. Westview's not designing their own curriculum. It's coming from the district, which is coming from the state level, which all leads back to the national level. So it's just so hard to affect this change in like one foul swoop. It's like chain by chain, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And especially because like, if you think about it, the federal government oversees 50 states, and we're here like saying like one time someone said I was dark, and then in like South Carolina, it's like I got food thrown at me because I'm black. Like it's really bad over there. So it's like we really need to think about how are we going to instill change at a national level when there are some states that are like 40 years behind us in progress.
Yeah.
Right, and maybe don't even think they're behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's something too, right? It's like we can say that, oh, they're behind this, but in their opinion,
they're in front of us.
They're in front of us. Yeah. This is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So it can feel overwhelming. It can feel hopeless at times. But let's talk about what we can do. So let's talk about us as individuals, right? Because it'll take time to change things at the national level. It'll take time to change things at the state level, the district level, right? So, but you're here now. You're here at Westview right now. So what can you do as individuals?
I think what I continually do and what I will always do is just show and spread love. That is so important with everybody you meet, to not have judgments about them, to just like have no barriers with them and just be open and honest and just like give them love, you know? And like it can really affect and like help people. And like I think if everybody just has that mindset of just like we're friends now, like we're like best friends, like I can't wait to talk with you all the time and like get to know you and stuff, like then they'll feel like they're valued. And that's so important, to feel valued.
Yeah, like you can't, it's like, I know this is like a really, really funny analogy, but like my family has a shelter dog, and it was like beat like multiple times before, and like we were told like you have to love it, and then train it. Like love it, like make sure it trusts you 100% and then train it. And I think that goes along with everything in life. Like if something comes to you and it's not in its perfect shape, whether it be like mindset, like things like that, you need to show like absolute love. And when they start to like adjust to you and they realize they can trust you, that's when you start to like try to like help them like in a constructive way, like whether it be with like tolerance, like acceptance, things like that.
I don't think anyone would listen to you if they didn't trust you. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're telling them what we're trying to spread. They're not going to listen to you if they don't like value you as a person, value as a human being, like trust you or even respect you. Like those things have to come first before you can try to tell them, hey, like maybe you shouldn't say those things, because whether we like it or not, if they don't have our respect, or if they don't respect us, if they don't trust us, they're not going to listen to us. Like they'll listen to it and it'll just go out the other ear, and they're not going to take anything that we say into consideration. So those things have to come first. Like we have to make sure we respect them. We have to make sure that they feel valued, or else nothing constructive is going to come out of it, because they're not going to listen.
So love them first.
Yeah.
Build that trust and respect first. Get to know them and their story first.
Like you
Great.
can build respect out of fear, like if you try to put respect before love.
Yeah. Other ideas? What
And
can
like
we do?
being a Muslim, I have to be very, very careful for first impression, because I already have a bad image. Like just because in the media how I'm portrayed, I have to be very careful about what I say, how I react, even my facial expressions. Because if I don't do something perfectly, they'll be like, oh, she hates me, or she thinks I'm already racist, even though I didn't even say anything. I might have like did a smile for 1 second. So I have to be very positive, and then like of course love them, and before educating them, I have to give them the impression that I don't want to be very defensive or attack you. I'm just trying to educate you, like normal neutrality.
I feel like the main problem, how like conflict starts, is like fear of knowledge. So like if they don't understand anything and then they come up to you saying, oh, this and that, it's because they just blatantly don't know. So I feel like informing them of like why or how we are, or let's just say, for example, right? So I'm black and white, I'm biracial. So people will walk up to me and ask, hey, are you black or are you white? I would say I'm black. I don't know why, I was just raised that way. And so they would ask, why would you say you're black when you also have white in you? I mean, I don't know, that's just how I'm raised. Another thing, this actually happened last year. So there was a student, I'm not gonna say names because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but the N-word. So there would always be people saying, hey, can I get the pass, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, no, because like, why? Like, why would you feel the need to say it? And the only reason why, like, I feel like some people say it, like, I'm not speaking for a whole race here, but for me, why I feel some of my friends say it is because, like, that's just how we greet each other, period. But also, like, people take to offense with it. Like my mom, for example, she'd be like, Dom, you can't be, like, saying that word. Like, if I'm, like, talking out with my friends, she overhears me, then she'll be like, Dom, like, stop saying that word, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, sorry. So, like, for me, informing people of, like, why or how we do things, that's gonna erase conflict, period. So that's all I have to say about that.
And maybe even being talked about kind of patience. That's what I heard. Like we have to be patient, as hard as it can be sometimes, to be patient with people who we realize don't know, right? So there are differences in, you know, where you're born versus what your race is versus what your ethnicity is, right? Those are three different things, right? Race is this social construct to put us in categories based on our skin tone, which interestingly enough, I don't know that any of us would have been put in the same racial group at all, which is actually super dope, I think. And then ethnicity-wise, you have to ask people those questions. You can't just assume what someone's ethnicity is. It requires conversation. Right?
It's all about like your choice of vocabulary and like, and it's one of the most frustrating things to me. Like when I'm like, hey, like you can't just say that. Like it's like, why? It's just so much easier to call somebody like a tranny than call them like transgendered or like it's just like using the right to make them feel respected and the right tone and stuff. It's like instead of using hey, where are you from? No, where are you from? Like what's your ethnicity? Like what's your ethnic background
Where's your
and
origin?
stuff?
Like,
Like that just comes from that completely changes the direction of this conversation.
Totally.
You know? And
Like,
so like
And
just
I think-
like making an active choice behind the words you use.
And like
is-
the intention behind it, like they'll say, oh, like, oh, you're Muslim, or like, oh, you're Arab. And
Just
so
like
they're
the way
oh,
they
you're
react,
Arab. Let me, like, can I know more about your culture? Like, oh, I'd love to hear about like your family or something like that.
Yeah, you know how like people are like, what are you? And I'm like, oh,
Human.
like I'm
Yeah, seriously. For real.
oh, like I'm from California. They're like, no, but what are you? Like in that voice that's like, I don't believe you. And it's like, I'm from my mom. Like, my mom's uterus.
When I was in middle school, people would ask me that all the time. You know, it was assumed that I was Puerto Rican growing up, and then when I got into middle school, they were like, so what are you? That same question. And I got so frustrated with it because I'm like, why do you have to ask it like that? Like, what am I? And so I just used to say to them, oh, I'm purple and green, and then just walk away. And they're super confused. And I was like, got 'em, you know? Like, they're so confused at this point. So yeah, I love that. So really thinking about what comes out of our mouth before it comes out, being very intentional behind what we're saying and how we're saying it. Yeah, that's so important. And that, oh my gosh, that's so key. If we start there with what we're saying, if we think about it and how it's coming off, that can really change so much. Wow, that's great. So I want you all, each one of you, to kind of finish this off and round it out. Tell people what you want them to know, like about this conversation about intolerance and acceptance. Maybe what you want them to know about you specifically, what you want them to know about becoming educated about this topic. I mean, anything involving what we've been talking about. But let your peers hear from you specifically. What do you want them to know?
I would want them to keep seeking knowledge and keep asking questions and don't stop until you have the full story. And maybe you won't get the full story, but it's better than not knowing nothing beforehand and making those stereotypes, those judgments.
I believe like not going against stereotypes and like seeking that knowledge, and also what he was saying, like use better vocabulary, because I feel like the reason why when people like actually talk to each other in person and like use like, hey, where are you from? It's because they lack communication skills. Like I feel like if we were on a phone and that we were texting it and we thought about what we texted out before we sent it, then it'd come out much different, just because okay, you're thinking twice of what you're saying. So having better communication skills and seeking that knowledge would erase all conflict.
I mean, I believe in digging like beneath the surface and in covering your own answers, because you know, like it's this whole nature versus nurture where it's you can listen to your parents, you can listen to your educators, and you can listen to yourself. And I think a combination of those three, you don't have to neglect one aspect of it. I think it's just forging your own way to deal with whatever's going on in your own society. And I think that goes along with pursuing knowledge. And it's not just like a type of knowledge you can look up in a book. It's like intrinsic knowledge. It's what you feel like will help you as you go on towards not just like an academic future. It's how you're going to relate to others as you get older.
I think you have to know yourself before you can know anyone else. You have to think about it. You have to know, like, this is what I am. This is what I'm proud of. This is what I'm not proud of. This is what I need to work on. And once you know those things about yourself, like, you can go out and you can talk to other people and you can get things from them. You can say, wow, that's a really great quality, and I'm gonna try to use that in my daily life. Like, you can't ever know someone else before you really know yourself. So I think that's the most important thing, because I know even when I was younger, like I was so unhappy with myself, and as I've grown, like I've become happy with myself, I've become proud of myself, and that's what allows me to go and talk to other people and say, you know, maybe you shouldn't say those things just because about how I know I have felt.
Sure.
And you know, it gives people like a personal experience, like it's personal. Everything about this conversation's personal. It's always gonna get personal, and you can't be personal if you don't know like yourself. You can't be personal with other people, and so that's, I think, where it starts.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like intolerance and acceptance, I think I think for us and like for everybody that has had intolerance directed to them, it's because they wear themselves. I wear myself confidently. Like, I'm a confident gay man, so it's easy to pick up that I'm gay and comment on it. And so I think it's important for each and everybody like to find something about themselves that because like what makes us different is what actually makes us unique and special. So like it can be as easy as I'm left-handed or I'm gender fluid, you know? Like and as soon as you find something that like is special, unique, and that you love about yourself, like you wouldn't care what people call you because it's just a word and words hurt, but it's a fact, you know? And so like it's just like carrying yourself with full love and respect will like grow and just like spread. And I think that's like what's really, really important.
Yeah, like if you throw it out there, people have to catch it. Like they can't throw it back. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like if it's just like your identity.
Yeah. Wolverine, these are your peers. These brilliant, amazing individuals are on your campus, and you know this is the start. This is awesome. This is a start. This is a start of a conversation, and these, oh my gosh, y'all are brilliant. This is so fantastic. So when you see these people on campus, they got to be a part of something unique, and they are so knowledgeable, and each of them have gone through their own things and have their own story, and each person's story is so valuable and so special, and we are unique and we are different, and that's what makes us beautiful. That's what makes this campus beautiful. That's what makes this world beautiful. So I'm Nicky, Geis. I'm gonna be seeing you all on Friday, so get ready for me, Wolverines. We're coming back with more for this conversation. I'll see y'all Friday. Peace.